one of your biggest struggles you'd mentioned is getting out of your own way. So very honest of you. Why has that always been a struggle?
I mean, I think that anybody that goes into business for themselves is, to some degree, a certain type of person, has a certain type of confidence, a certain, I can do this particular task better than anybody else.
Swagger.
No, it's confidence.
Swagger, false bravado, whatever it might be. It's, because look, and here's the question, you might be able to do this thing better than the next person in your office. But is the delta between how you do it and how they do it worth you doing it, right? Is it more efficient? Is it better for the business for you to hand that off, even if there's a slight drop, so that you can do a better job on something else?
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to real estate, insurance, and building your business. Join us as we take you along our own business building journeys with additional wisdom from our network of local and national experts. Welcome to Bricks and Risk. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bricks and Risk. I'm Timmy Garrity.
And I'm Sean Mooney.
You should have gone with Shawnee, but we'll skip over that.
Along the Shawnee River.
Skip over that one again. Well, I'll have to ask our guests. We have a great guy on, local, greater Philadelphian, I should say, business owner, Shaun Gavaghan with Gavaghan Family Insurance. How you doing today, Shaun?
Good, fellas. How are you?
Welcome on in.
Doing great. Thanks for coming on the show. Real quick, did anyone call you Shawnee growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it. And people probably call it him. He just never admits it. So we'll just go with that.
Sean P. Sean
P. Or Sean.
Le Sean.
Le Sean. So Shaun owns an independent insurance agency offering personal and commercial lines of insurance. Being independent, having a wide variety of carriers allows Gavaghan Family Insurance to get their clients the pricing they deserve. Shaun believes that a great customer experience comes down to three things: friendly and knowledgeable people, simple and efficient processes, and superior technology. He's a hockey, baseball, and dance dad. He's a shower beer enthusiast, which I can't wait to talk about that one. And also, he put himself as the second best insurance agent ever.
Dylan, can you fact check that one?
Yeah. So he was number one.
Is that the world?
You'll have to ask Mooney that one.
Right.
Is that in the world?
I already know it's not him.
I want to meet this first.
I didn't want to reach too far coming out of the gate.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, man.
Coming in hot.
Awesome.
You gotta leave room.
All right. So how did you get into insurance and kind of go through some of your journey? How'd you get into it? How long have you been doing this? Now you own your own shop. Like, what's that journey like?
So I graduated from Temple in 2002 as an education major.
Go Owls.
All I wanted to be was a social studies teacher in high school.
No way.
Yeah. So I subbed for a year. First summer out of college, it went on a few interviews, to no avail. Went in and subbed for a whole school year. I tutored homebound kids that were either sick or like thrown out of school for, suspended for some length of time. So some interesting stuff there. Mm-hmm. Coached baseball. I was landscaping, working in a bar. I was doing, painting. I was doing all sorts of random stuff to get by. Second summer of interviews came and went, and no dice. So I got into insurance by accident. I actually had a phone call one day. I'll skip the long part of the story, but I was told that I would basically not get a teaching job in the one district that I wanted to get a job in specifically, because I had graduated with a 3.34 and a 3.5 was the prerequisite. So,
dude, that's a phenomenal GPA on its own.
I thought so. So anyway, it's an education major. So
right guy.
Yeah, he is. Brighter than us.
I don't want to tell you what my GPA was.
I think mine was higher.
My mom was like, I don't think college is right for you.
Yeah. You're like, cool, I'll go sling insurance. Thanks, Mom. Go ahead.
So
Sorry.
anyway, I was commiserating with a buddy, and he's like, "Why don't you come work in New York Life?" And I'm like, "I don't want to sell insurance."
Yeah.
Said, well, you have to do something to hold you over until you find a teaching job, right? I said, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. So went and interviewed. Obviously, starting salary was zero. So as long as you're not an idiot, they hire you.
Right.
So I went there, and I was there about 6 months. Question came up with an age change with my own car insurance. So I called my agent, who was a nationwide agent, and I said, I know the age change works this way with life insurance. Is my rate going to go down again at when I turned 25, I guess it was? And he's like, no, one of my old bosses was kind of an abrasive guy. So he's like, yeah, how do you know anything about life insurance? You're a teacher. I said, well, I'm in insurance now. I just got into it. Long story. He said, you want to learn anything about life insurance? You come talk to me. So I drive to his office at Tyson and Roland, which he's no longer there, but I went there, and he spent about 15 minutes talking about life insurance, and the next 2.5 hours explaining why I should come work with him. So it was a compelling argument. He's like, look, you're going to sell more life insurance as icing on the cake.
Right.
Because where you are as a 24, I guess I was 24. He's like, the only people that are going to buy life insurance from you are your friends. Right. And it's going to be $10 a month, and you're not going to make any money. Nobody else is going to trust you for a while. If you come sell auto and homeowners insurance and sell life insurance, as icing, you'll still sell more than you would on your own.
Interesting.
Story checked out, so I agreed to it and went to work with him. Before that even came up, before I actually even started with him, because I had to get the P&C license, another opportunity came up with another nationwide agent that he had seen at a recent meeting. And the other agent said, listen, I have this relationship with a credit union, which is American Heritage. He said, I have a relationship there where they get a discount from Nationwide through the Nationwide Affinity Program. They want somebody on site at their main office on Red Lion Road full time. He's like, and I don't have somebody. So why don't we split this kid that you found? We'll throw him in there. We'll split the business that he writes out of there. And so that's what we did. I went in there February of 2004 and, worked 6 days a week for 9 years. And
wow.
January 2nd, 2013, after some bumps and bruises and some good times, I decided to roll off onto my own and make a run at it.
That's some grinding, man. So you're sticking with this routine for almost a decade. And was it at that point where you're like, okay, like I'm pretty good at this, social studies career, long gone,
Yep.
At this point, what was it about starting your own insurance brokerage that kind of hit you at that point? Was it the money? Were you doing some math? Were you like, I'm sick of working for these people? Like, what was it that kind of pushed you over the line?
So it was a number of things. I learned a lot from my two bosses that I worked for. Both great guys, but like any business relationship, sometimes the train just runs out of track for a variety of reasons. Money obviously is always in play. It wasn't the 100% driving factor. I did want some more autonomy in the way I did business, the way I marketed, the markets I had access to, and I could see that wasn't going to come to fruition in the position that I was in. I also knew I was going to, my kids were getting older and I wanted more time off. I didn't want to have to explain why I needed time. And so it was a combination of freedom in a few ways. Plus I knew there was the potential to make more money and be in the driver's seat. There's studies show, that when you look at military situations, guys in the back from what I read tend to suffer PTSD worse than the guys making decisions because you're relying on the fact that somebody else is making the decision that your life depends on.
Right.
And that wears on people. And in business, it's no different in that regard. That sometimes you're like, I think this guy knows what he's doing. Could we be doing better? Could we, so that always kind of, because I always had ideas and it was, there was only so much you could do where I was. So
PTSD is a very familiar thing going on in the insurance industry right now.
In real estate too, bro.
Yeah. Shaun, as the number 2 insurance agent of all time, can you talk to us about...
Self-proclaimed.
Where do you rank? Do you know?
I'm at least in the top
You're in the top.
100 million.
You're what are they, like Fortune 500? You're somewhere you're in the top 500.
Shaun, getting contracts early on. I've talked on the podcast previously. I got laughed out the door by most carriers. Can you tell us about getting started and how you were able to get contracts with these carriers to get off the ground and get going with the agency?
Yeah. So my a buddy of mine, who was one of the guys that kind of convinced me to do this, he introduced me to a woman that was a sales manager for Liberty Mutual. And, Shaun, I don't know if you remember, and Tim, you might, in 2000, I would say like 9, 10 through like 13, Liberty Mutual was like smoking. I mean, they were writing everything that was coming down the street. So, my buddy said to the sales manager woman, he said, listen, my buddy's writing, a lot of business with Nationwide. If he's writing with Nationwide right now, he would crush it with Liberty. So I got in touch with this woman, and she said, listen, I'll give you an appointment. Mike speaks highly of you. It's an affiliate appointment where, you go to, in my case, Mutual of Omaha, and you get appointed with them as a financial advisor, life agent. And then as an agent with them, it gives you access to Liberty Mutual for personal lines.
Yeah.
So I did that, and now I had one. And that's when I was like, okay, this is happening. And I started probably like you did, Shaun, going on carrier sites at night, filling out all the fields to become an agent. You get a call the next day from somebody, and they're like, or the next week, and they're like, how big's your book of business? I'm like, it's hovering right around 0.
Right.
And they're like, okay, yeah, give us a call in 2 years, or give us a call when you hit X.
Right.
And I got lucky where I called another carrier, and a sales manager, came out to my office, and we had a storefront, so he'd entertain the idea. His dad was a sales manager for years for another regional carrier, and had some great relationships with guys that he appointed as scratch agents over time. And so this guy, the son, had kind of a soft spot for the scratch agent and gave me an appointment with Grange. And then I got appointed with Progressive, who will appoint pretty much anybody. And off I went with those 3 for the first 9 months. Okay. And then I wrote a lot of business in that time. So then things changed a little bit, because when I started to call some of these other companies, and at that point we had one company that came to us because I had my buddy that originally referred me to Liberty told somebody from Travelers, hey, this guy's writing a lot of business, you should go talk to him. Got appointed with them. I had one company I talked to, I forget who it was. And this lady, she asked me how much business I had written, and I told her, and she was like, yeah, okay. She didn't believe me. Yeah. And she, basically kind of laughed and hung up, and that was that. And so, yeah, it was tough early on, but then once the ball got rolling, and I had the right carriers, which was important too, Shaun, as you know. I mean, it's like if there are certain ones that anybody could get. I got MetLife in 2014 in February, and that was a key partner for us for some time. That changed a couple of years ago, but when they sold, but that was huge because they had the right package, this Grant Protect,
that fit your clients.
What's that?
That fit your clients and their needs.
And it was priced right. It provided an unbelievable amount of coverage, and it really allowed us to provide a lot more value. And that, also allowed me to go out and make some, real estate connections and kind of start to branch out and start marketing this thing.
Do you remember what the conversation was with your wife when you said, I'm leaving my job and I want to go start my own agency?
I do.
Would you like to share, or was that?
Yeah. I mean, look,
maybe not all the curse words, just some.
Yeah. My wife and I have been together
sleeping
with the exception of 11 months. We've been together for 9,000 years. No, since the day I turned 16.
Wow, your high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Nice. Good for you, man.
So, and my longest girlfriend before that was also her. when I was 15 and she was 14. So so that said, because at the time, I mean, and still, like, my wife doesn't work outside the home. I mean, she wrangles 3 kids and is at their schools every day, and so she's plenty busy. But she wasn't working, and so it was like, look, dude, if you're gonna go and do this on your own, like, I believe that you think it'll work. And she stopped me one night, because this went on for probably 2 months, this whole exploratory thinking. And then one night she stops me, and she's like, what are you doing? So, what do you mean? She's like, look at you. And I'm wandering around the house with a beer in one hand and a calculator in the other. And I had papers all over with math scribbled all over the place. And she's like, this is nuts. Like, you said the math checks out, right? I said, it does. She's like, then do it.
What are you waiting for?
Oh, nice. You're like, she's like, where are you going with that beer? You're like, to the shower, obviously.
What are you doing with that?
Where else would I be going, honey?
Why did you get rid of the calculator and have a funnel?
Right.
I know.
Weird.
That's awesome. So it sounds like, again, I started I started real estate brokerage from scratch about 10 years ago. It was with 2 other partners. The partnership split, and when the partnership split, we had to sunset the brand. But now some of the people from my past brokerage have joined me on my team at my new brokerage. So similar to you, Shaun and I have been in those positions in our lives where we've worked for other people, like, steady income, steady job. I didn't have any kids at the time. Did you have any kids yet when you were making this decision, or were you just married?
Yeah, no, I had all 3 of my.
Oh, wow.
No pressure.
So wow. I bought a house in Holland here in July of 2011.
Wow.
My youngest Owen was born in April of 12, and then this whole conversation started around like September of 12.
Okay.
And then it progressed pretty quickly, and then January 2nd of 13, I opened up.
Wow. So was one of your strategies, did you have like some money socked away? Were you just like, honey, we just got to go lean and mean for like 6 to 12 months? Like, what was it like jumping into business for yourself with, again, no income and expenses out the ass and 3 children? This must have been semi-stressful on you and your family. Like, how did you go about that?
So that's an enormous understatement, as you know. There was no money saved. There was no. I had a Ford Escape that was paid off that I went to my credit union where I work.
Refinance.
I used it as collateral to borrow, it was like $9,000 or something.
Nice. Good move, man.
I used that to pay my first month in security deposit at the office. I drove down to the Tiger Direct store in Delaware and bought all my computer stuff and phones. And the first couple of weeks, I was in my office with this glass table that I still have, and with a laptop and a cell phone, just getting after it. Yeah. And then I got my desk, an actual computer or 2, and some phones, and off we went. And I was by myself for the first 3 months. And then my sister came. She was working. I had gotten her a part-time job in the agency, one of the agencies that I came from.
Okay.
And she was getting them paperless, just scanning, old files in. And then in March, she came over with me part-time, for a year. And then she graduated from Temple and went to work at, she's on the fundraising side at Children's Hospital. And she does all the event planning and unbelievable work she does. But anyway, so I went off on my own and just kind of made it happen. And when my sister was done, my Aunt Karen came in and took her place. Aunt Karen's still here somehow.
That's great.
And we have an agreement loose that I can't fire her and she can't quit. So we're just kind of stuck with each other.
Shout out to Aunt Karen.
Aunt Karen. Everybody loves Aunt Karen. Most of our clients call her Aunt Karen too. So.
That's great.
Sales managers, everybody. Where's Aunt Karen?
Yeah. Man, here's a big takeaway. We always try, and one thing Shaun and I say on every episode, we want people to listen because we want you to walk away with around 1 or 2 valuable nuggets. Like, someone else is out there listening or watching this right now in the same spot that you were in. And it might not even be insurance. It could be real estate. It could just be entrepreneurial. It could be anything. And it's like, not only does it take guts to do that on your own, you did that with a family on your back, which is super admirable. And you're like, how do I do this? Okay, I got a car and it's paid off, but it's an asset and I take care of it. Who's willing to give me a line of credit, let's call it, a loan on this asset so I can go pay my rent and do this? I mean, what a great story. What a great nugget for people.
It's nuts. I mean, it got so hard. And it wasn't 6 to 12 months. It was like, ironically, it was like 6 months in, I was flying high. Like I was writing a ton of business and things were great. And then Liberty Mutual slowed down they took a massive increase on new business in July of that summer, that first year. So the second 6 month period was tough. So I was like, all right, because I'm surviving on just new business commissions. There's no renewal yet.
Yeah.
So I said to my wife, I'm like, we just have to limp through to February when my first round of renewal commissions start coming, which obviously at the tail end of that is Christmas, and so it got rough. And then the next year came. Now you have renewals, right? And they're coming in and there's increases. So now you have like service work starting to pile up.
Yep.
So it was rough for a couple of years. And I always say, thank God I didn't know how hard it was going to be, because I probably wouldn't have done it. I knew it was going to be hard, but and I'll have guys, as I'm sure Shaun does also, kids that'll ask you, how did you, like, what's the process like? And I'm like, honestly, dude, I have no idea. I mean, I was like one step at a time. Like I was told you need this. Okay. I'm going to go get an agency name through the state of Pennsylvania. I'm going to get an agency license on, $65 or whatever. Boom.
Right.
And like, what's the next thing? Oh, you need appointments. Okay. What do I, and like just kind of piecemealing it together until like flying the plane as you're building it, as they say.
Yeah.
Can you go dive deep on the Tiger Direct deals in Delaware?
Yeah.
Like what kind of savings are we talking
about? It's the home
there?
of tax-free shopping.
Yep. Savings right there.
And
I think we should do a road trip down there.
I saved $7.13 alone by going to Delaware.
You and I are going to rent a Ford Escort. We're going to put a camera on the dash. We're going to drive to Delaware, and we're going to record it, and then we're going to put that B-roll in this video.
Well, montage.
Yeah.
Well, I bought a remote control helicopter too. That was my splurge.
There you go. You're like, did you show your wife at the time? Because I imagine you're like going to office supplies and you have no income and you bought a helicopter. Seems kind of weird.
And then like, you're like, honey, I'm on my lunch break. Please leave me alone so I can fly this thing and enjoy a few moments of life before I have to go back in and slave away.
Shaun, you've done a lot of work over your career with real estate people. This podcast, we speak a lot to an audience of real estate professionals. Can you tell us some of the strategies that you've kind of developed over the years in terms of working with real estate agents and kind of why that was one of your go-to markets to kind of partner with?
So I kind of came across, we had a couple of realtors that referred us business over the years. And then when I got off on my own, I kind of latched on to a couple because, I knew that they could provide, a steady stream of decent business. Where it got better is when I started to realize selfishly from our point of view, instead of just kind of throwing numbers out there to somebody that may or may not be interested, because, you're doing a lot of cold calling early on. And, hey, I quoted your insurance 3 years ago, couldn't help at the time. I told you if I could ever help, I'd give you a call back. Some things have changed. Unless you have any major objection, let's take another look. Like you throw a proposal out to that family and it's like, yeah, this seems pretty good, but like, my renewal's in whatever. And, we'll see what that says when it comes out. Real estate is a hard backstop. Right? There's a closing date.
Yep.
This couple has to buy insurance by this date. And they also have a lender up their butt, to get it done. So it's a much easier, plus, especially with the first time home buyers, it's like, hey, look, you have your own car, you're with Progressive, you're with Geico. Why don't we wrap all this together, get you an umbrella, write life insurance, and, you go make some babies and we'll talk later.
Was that part of the instruction?
Yeah, well, it's in the fine print.
Right.
So where I saw at first, and this could be a whole other conversation, but as a younger agent, I was very price oriented, and it was like when I was at Nationwide, I was just like, because I didn't see the value fully in what we as good insurance agents do yet. So, you didn't have, major claim situations that I had dealt with. I didn't have, horror stories of people that I had heard about, like, hey, can you talk to my buddy? This happened and his insurance doesn't sound like it's up to par. As you start to accumulate those experiences and those stories that you hear, your outlook changes. So what I really kind of changed gears is, seeing referrals come in, doing good for people, having those people go back to their realtor or their mortgage guy and say, hey, I really appreciate you hooking us up with Gavaghan Family Insurance. This happened and like they came through huge for us. All of a sudden, like that premium dollar isn't as big of a deal. So that, when my mindset changed, everything else kind of changed, with it.
Hey everyone, this is Tim, your favorite Bricks and Risk co-host. But don't tell Shaun. I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'll get right back to it in a moment. Our audience grows through word of mouth, so if you would please take a moment of your time and give us a review on the platform you're on, that would be fantastic. Please also help spread the B&R word by sharing your favorite episode with a friend. We greatly appreciate your time and trust. Now, back to the show. All right, so Shaun and I recently did an episode. So we do episodes with successful people such as yourself. They're more like the guest interview episodes. But then we also do topical episodes where we'll talk about something in business, in life, something we can relate to, that we can expound upon. And we just did an episode recently. Remember the one we did about brands and branding?
Yeah.
So your brand, I love. I mean, one, we have three Irish-rooted people in the conversation right now. So, and Dill, I'm sorry. We have four. The guy who works our studio, his last name's McGonigal, and that's definitely not Italian.
He's in.
And yeah, he's in. So your brand, a couple things I had questions on. So you decided to go with your name. So again, sometimes people go with their family name for their business. Other times they call it ABC Real Estate because they want to be first in the phone book, like old school back in the day. So one, you chose to use your name, which is admirable. And then two, you chose to go with the Shamrock. So obviously you're paying homage to your Irish roots. Sure. Why did you decide to go with those two things when creating your brand?
So that was met with a lot of resistance, by the way, not that anybody else's opinion. I mean, I obviously value other people's opinions, but can see how much, but I did have people like, dude, that's not a good idea.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. The Shamrock, some people might see that and go,
Yeah.
But number one, I feel like most people in this area have at least a little bit of Irish in them.
Yeah, that's true.
If not, they want to at least one day, right?
Right. They all drink on St. Patty's Day, so they like it.
So I feel like everybody in some way, whether it's via their heritage or if it's just like a symbol of luck, people feel a good feeling when they look at a Shamrock. Yeah. Right. It's just not. It just gives you something good. As far as my name, I just like at Nationwide, it was always like the last name of the agency. So right. I just kind of thought that that's how it should be.
That's the move. Like, I'll go with my name.
That was it. I mean, that's what everybody else was doing. And that's what it's to make sense. And, so that's what we did. The Shamrock I created with my brother-in-law is a pretty talented artist and drew this and then somehow got it digitized. And, we tweaked the stem under the Shamrock and, I ended up getting that trademarked because I make, we get pens made and I drop bundles of pens at every establishment, right? I haven't done it in a while, but I used to take pens everywhere. I I had a guy, Tom Slattery, in peace, Tom. Unbelievable guy, and he used to run this Gale school up at Notre Dame High School in above Trenton.
Yep.
So the one day I walk into a local establishment, and Tom's sitting there, and hey, what's going on? Tom goes, oh, I just talked to you, your buddy that makes your pens. I said, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm going to get some made for the Gale school. So that's great. He goes, yeah. He asked me about the Shamrock. I said I didn't know what to use, and he's like, your buddy said, why don't you just use Shaun's? I'll just color the G in, and he's like, so that's what we're doing. And I'm like, all right, well, that's okay for you. Yeah. But I'm thinking in my head, that's a problem, right? Because, I said, who's to say somebody's not like, Gannon Landscaping. He's like, I like that Shamrock so much that I'm going to trademark it. Right. And then I'm going to have to get family insurance to tell them they can't use it.
Right.
So I had a young intern guy in here, and I was like, dude, you got to figure out, So he comes in the office and he's like, listen, it's a $50 fee to find out if you can trademark it or if somebody else already has something close enough that you're not allowed.
Right.
I said, well, for $50, we find out either way that we either can trademark it or nobody else can either. So
you definitely don't want that Irish contractor who's installing toilets to use your Shamrock.
That's true. And my last name starts with a G too, so he doesn't want me ripping it off and calling it Garrity Real Estate. Mooney Insurance is ours, and I did the name, but I don't think I would do it. If I had to go back in time, I would have probably done something different. Yeah, you said that before.
Yeah.
Why is it for you? Why do you think using your name is something that you would not repeat if you did it again in some way, shape, or form?
I don't know if I could really pin down exactly why. I just think that I've said this a bunch of times, but the separation of the agency to me and myself.
Gotcha.
I wanted it to kind of be.
Yeah, because when it's your name, it's your name as a person as well as the business becomes synonymous.
Yeah.
And therefore it's hard to separate.
Yeah.
Whereas the real estate brokerage that I started from scratch was called Copper Hill Real Estate. And it meant absolutely nothing. It meant that myself, my brother Ryan, and my friend Andrew went to Ryan's roof deck with a 30-pack of tall boys and started crushing beers and throwing out names. And my brother Ryan threw out Copper Hill, and we all looked at each other like, what was that one again? He's like, what about Copper Hill Real Estate? We're like, dude.
Copper Hill.
That's a good name.
What is it?
It's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's a couple of words mashed together because we were crushing beers and it sounded cool, and we bid on it and we said let's do it. It was kind of like you. Like, I was very logical when we were trying to name the company. I'm like, how do we incorporate like Philly or like the city or the metro area, like Greater Philadelphia? Like, how do we put something together that says we're a real estate brokerage in and around Philadelphia? And we were talking about it. Oh, what about this? What about that? And then my brother Ryan was just like, too generic. Why does it have to mean anything? Why don't we just put together a name that we like that can stand on its own? And we're like, okay, genius. What do you have in mind? He's like, I got some elements here. I got copper. I got iron. He's like, I got oak. I got bridge. I got hill. So we're like, blah, 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 blah. We're throwing two words together. And then he said Copper Hill. And we're like, dude, that's a good name. Yeah.
It's like the brainchild for Bricks and Risk.
Pretty much. Yeah. I don't come up with any names. So my brother came up with the name for my brokerage business. And then Shaun came up with the name for the podcast. And he came up with the name. And I even had to convince him, dude, let's go with that. He's like, I don't know. I was like, what do you don't know? I'm like, bricks for real estate, risk for insurance. Makes sense.
Tim was like, let's name it the Corporate Talk Show for Real Estate and Insurance Podcast.
With Timothy Garrity and Shawnee Mooney.
Yeah, kind of rolls off the tongue.
Pretty easily. So
love that shirt, by the way. This was
the
back seat of my truck this morning.
Make sure he's washing his hands when you go down to the Tacony Bridge.
That's right.
Make sure he's got that hand sterilizer.
Dude, speaking of that, like when we used to take, so I grew up in Abington, like I told you, so grew up in the suburbs.
Make sure you reference it for the people in New Zealand.
Yes.
So that they can understand.
Any listeners or watchers, if you're unfamiliar, where Philadelphia is located in Pennsylvania, it's in the southeastern corner. Where we go to hang out and have fun when the weather's nice is the South Jersey Shore. We don't go to the Central Jersey Shore. We don't go to the North Jersey Shore. Most of us go to the South Jersey Shore, which is basically like Philadelphia's playground. And when I was driving from the house I grew up in the suburbs over to the bridge to cross over into Jersey and go south, we would always cut through Northeast Philadelphia. And there'd be pretzel vendors everywhere. You know, the brown bags, 3 in a bag, 3 for $1. Every time my parents, 4 kids, they get 2 bags and we'd be rolling down. We'd just be eating pretzels on the way down. And then I remember probably in like my teenage, maybe my college years, like some story came out and they're like, yeah, I don't know if that's very sanitary.
No, there was a video. It was a video.
That's what it was.
Yeah, of the guy who was selling the pretzels who went over the telephone pole and he was relieving himself. And then he was coming back over to sell pretzels.
I broke off 3. I said, there you go. You're like, oh, right.
Yeah. Shaun.
Before hand sanitizer.
Shaun, it's a very difficult market in the industry right now for insurance.
I've heard.
What are you doing? Tell us what it's been for you in this hard market and kind of what some things you are doing right now to deal with it.
Well, I think
he's like, I still have that helicopter.
Yeah, let's start.
So
on my free time when
my day is slow,
insurance,
I fly that puppy around.
That same 30-pack of tall boys that Tim had on the roof deck.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a reset of expectations of your growth is, like sometimes it's 2 steps back, and so right now it's just kind of like a refocus. Sometimes things get put on the back burner when the getting's good. There are things that like little projects that you want to get to, whether it's marketing or bringing in a new technology. And so we've kind of focused on some of that. It's given me a chance to talk to some people about some things that, we've written some or talked about some big, life insurance cases with people, some buy-sell stuff and things that we've, kind of, I wouldn't say like shooed away, but opportunities that have presented themselves that I haven't really aggressively gone after in the past, because it's like I'm running 100 miles an hour down this road. I can't look at anything else. Now I'm like, you know what? Let's take a look. So, it's you just have to wait. I mean, I know a lot of people, Shaun, you and I have talked about this. There are a lot of agents that are out there still writing a good bit of business. They're going to be rewriting it in a year or 2. Yep. If it doesn't fly out the window. I mean, it's the stuff that is presenting itself to you right now is a lot of times an unrealistic comparison shopper that you might be able to temporarily make happy. But when another round of increases comes down the road or something else, it's not necessarily people that see the value. Like most of our clients, our existing clients, they'll call or email, text, whatever it is. And I get on the phone with them like, hey, here's what's going on. Like, oh man, I don't go too far down the rabbit hole, but I do talk about, the conditions that caused the hard market, kind of surface level. But I do mention reinsurance because that lends to the underwriting guidelines that have changed, because it's not only, the rate increases, that's only part of it. Mm-hmm. It's the cancellations, the changing of and slimming of appetites. Mm-hmm. And that's largely due to, reinsurers, because these primary insurers are getting pressure from reinsurers to get business off the books. Otherwise, their reinsurance rates are going to go up. So because that's, you're telling people, look, the rate increase is what it is. There's not a lot we can do. We can talk about that in a minute. Shopping is the natural reaction, the knee-jerk reaction to a price increase. But here's why that might not necessarily be a good idea. It could be a waste of, it's mostly our time, but both of our times, because they have to answer some questions. But you don't want to, I have a buddy of mine that, we moved them from one company to another to save $1,500. You're like, all right, that's nothing to sneeze at. Let's do it. They went out and inspected, and he had to do $2,500 in repairs to keep the policies in force. Yep. And that's a pretty common story. That was before all the craziness. So it was stuff that, he called me. He's like, dude, this is like, it's all stuff I knew I had to do, but like,
Didn't want to do it today.
get a kid at LaSalle, right? Not cheap. And he's like, I didn't expect to do all this right now. Like, sorry, it's,
Wow.
so, you don't want to put people in that spot. So you try to tell people like, here's the risk and I'm willing to run with it. If you want me to, I'll do whatever. You're the boss, but here's what can happen. Here's what we've seen. And usually people, will say, you know what, you guys know best. I'll go with your direction.
Is this the worst market you've ever seen?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? It's like Shaun just going through all that. We did an episode. I'm not sure if you've listened or heard to any of our past episodes, but there was one where we really dove into insurance, where I was kind of like firing questions at this Shaun at Mooney. And a lot of the things that came up during that conversation were really like related to what you just said, meaning when people's premiums go up, like I feel like the general public, consumers who need insurance, you need insurance if you own a car or lease a car, you're going to need insurance. If you own a house, even if you rent a house in most areas, you need insurance. There's health insurance, there's life insurance. Insurance is just a part of our lives. We also feel like we can get insurance anywhere. You can just go anywhere you want and get insurance. So as soon as your monthly bill goes up, which is what most people look at, you got auto debit, whatever it is, you see that number go up. The knee-jerk reaction is to call your insurance person, your trusted insurance contact, and say, hey, what is this? Like, what's the deal? Then you try and explain, hey, this is what's going on in the market right now. You've had to do this as well as this, Shaun. And then it's almost like the customer doesn't believe you. They're like, wait, what? Let me go check it out. And what you just said really rang true with me, because I have a house in the burbs. Recently, I had a water issue coming from like the windows at the top of my house, poured into the bottom and started coming through the drywall, like in my home office. And I called Shaun. I was like, yo, dude, like, what am I supposed to do with this? He's like, honestly, with that amount of work, just go figure it out. Like, contractors, you're in the business. Like, just go get it repaired. If you put a claim in with me, here's what could happen. You could lose your insurance. And I'm like, really? And this was like 6 months, 8 months ago. This wasn't even that long ago. And he's like, yeah, man. And again, I trust Shaun because we've been working together forever. I've known this dude since I was 10. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I just got to go figure it out. But I have trust with him. I can't even imagine how many people that still trust you. Maybe they don't know you as well as I know him. And they're just like, nah, I don't believe you, Shaun. I'm going to call 3 insurance carriers. Like you said, they're going to save me $1,500 or you can place it with someone else. They're like, yeah, well, you got to spend $2,500 right now to get that $1,500, which kind of doesn't make any sense.
And it's, there's also the total cost of risk idea. Right. So if you don't have somebody in your corner that not only you can trust, but is also trustworthy, right? Because there's a difference, right? I mean, you might think that you can trust somebody, right, and then you do, and you're like, oh man, that was horrible,
right,
advice. There are a lot of agencies out there that don't give advice that and look, our business has been commoditized over the years. Save 15% in 15 minutes is the worst thing that's ever happened. Not just to insurance agents, but to the general public, because the people that jump at that are the same ones out there going, it's bullshit. Insurance is a scam. Doesn't cover anything when you need it. Nope, not what you bought. It doesn't.
Right.
And that's reality. And they have a lot of marketing dollars that they put behind that narrative. And we have to compete against it. You compete against it not in price, but in saying, listen, what happens when you call me and go, hey, off the record, this happened over the weekend. My kid did this. What do I do? You think you're calling a service center at a 1-800 number and asking whoever answers the phone in whatever country that question? No.
Right.
So when that happens and I tell you, here's what you do, and this is going to save you a couple $1,000s, right, over time, or what, that all of a sudden that $1,500 it's nothing.
Right.
Shaun's the number one insurance
right.
agent.
So we'd like to hear from him as well.
With everything going on, there's no time that has been more important where you need a confidant. You need someone to be able to lean on with all of your insurance. You know, numerous people come to us and say, oh, I just got insurance with this company. They came out, did inspection, just sent me a cancellation letter.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that scenario where you're like, I don't know who I bought this policy online and I don't have someone to reach out to. Now what do I do? See, we're getting those calls because now they want to work with someone.
We want someone local.
Someone local that's going to like be on their side. Now that 15% doesn't quite matter, right?
It's true.
So my recommendation to everyone is get with someone that's really going to work with you and have your best interest at heart. I had a lady call the other day.
Relationships, man.
I had a lady call the other day and it was a request. Trudy got the call. Hey, I want to talk to the number one agent in the office. Right? So
like, we already know.
I wasn't in the office. Like, I get back the next day and I'm like, Trudy, what does she want? And you know, she's got 10 rental properties. She's got an auto, a home, umbrella. Blah, blah. So I call her back and I say, just getting some preliminary information.
You're like, this is numero uno. How may I help you?
Yeah. This is number one. She says, oh, I've been with this company and I've got all my properties with them. You know, I said, what's the problem? And she says, oh, I'm buying a new property and normally these policies cost, I don't know, $2,500. And now this new one is going to be $3,300.
Yeah.
I said, okay. I said, is that the problem? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, what's your history been with this company? And she's like, well, one of my properties, there was a fire, but it wasn't a big fire. And there's another property that had a roof claim. I said, listen, I said, without getting any further into this story, I said, stay where you're at.
Yep.
And take that policy for $3,500. She goes, you're rejecting me. You don't want my business?
You're like, correct.
I said, ma'am, I've been doing this long enough.
Yeah.
And given your circumstance, I know exactly where you need to be, and it's not with me.
Yeah, the free advice is hold on to what you got, and if it costs more money, thank your lucky stars that you have insurance based on what you told me.
Yeah. And so now, not am I only consulting for my clients when they come to me with an issue, but now I'm consulting
for your
people.
Leads.
Yeah.
Your cold leads.
But I'm consulting them to make sure that those people that I don't even have a business relationship with are in the best possible position.
Yeah. I mean, it's such good advice. All right. Let me shift a little bit. This is an awesome conversation. One of the questions we ask is everyone has struggles in business. So one of your biggest struggles you had mentioned is getting out of your own way. So very honest of you. Why has that always been a struggle?
I mean, I think that anybody that goes into business for themselves is, to some degree, a certain type of person, has a certain type of confidence, a certain, I can do this particular task better than anybody else.
Swagger.
No, it's confidence.
Swagger, false bravado, whatever it might be. It's, because look, and here's the question, you might be able to do this thing better than the next person in your office. But is the delta between how you do it and how they do it worth you doing it? Right? Is it more efficient? Is it better for the business for you to hand that off, even if there's a slight drop, so that you can do a better job on something else?
Yeah. Because
sometimes it's like, here's this needs to be done like this. You know what? Never mind. I'll just do it. And now you're stuck doing work that you shouldn't be doing. Communication in any business is what pays the bills. And the whether you're communicating with clients, with referral sources, with prospects, that's where the money is. And not everybody has the ability to do that. And pushing paper around, data entry, that stuff is not what a business owner should be doing. But I I do it, and sometimes it's like you have to relinquish control so that you can level up and make the next step. And that's extremely difficult for me.
Interesting.
And stepping out of the role, like, you've always done it. You've always been the person tasked with or responsible for doing a certain thing. And relinquishing, handing that over, it is a difficult thing to do.
It's hard to let go of things.
You want it done your way. You've always done it your way.
You're like, I'll do it twice as fast.
Yeah.
And then there won't be any mistakes because I'm perfect.
Yeah.
And that would be true for you.
I think the key for a business owner is having that person do that. And eventually, I think success in the business is having that person eventually get to a point where they are doing it better than you.
Better than you.
That's a win.
Yeah. Yeah. If you believe in delegation, that's where it should go for sure. And then
the E-Myth.
Yeah, Michael Gerber.
Yeah, Shaun did. I'm just gonna call you Mooney and Gavaghan. Mooney read it.
Yeah, it's easier.
I own it. Did not read it. I don't read many books. I consume more audio, video. I'm not as intelligent as Mr. Mooney over here.
Shaun.
It's a simple idea that, like, the entrepreneur is the what are the three? It's the technician, the manager, and the I forget what he called the third one, but it was basically like the grower, the entrepreneur, the driver, right? So there's the guy that does all the work, the guy that wants to grow this thing bigger, and the third guy that's like, hold on, we need to do this controllably and sustainably. And all three of those people are contained within the typical entrepreneur.
Yep.
And as long as you're, first of all, the technician, the one actually doing all the stuff, you can only get so far. And he made an interesting point in the book. He goes, if you stepped away from your business and your business stops, you don't have a business, you have a job. And by the way, your boss is a madman, So, and it's true, because when you think about it,
that's really good.
But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it is, man. All right, last thing we do is we talk about quotes. You gave us 3 quick quotes. You said, have fun, life's short, and never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups, which was by a comedian. You like?
You know who?
I don't. Should I?
I mean, I feel like it's, if you think about it for a second, that you might be able to think of who would say something like
George
that.
Carlin?
What was that guy you liked in college? What was his name?
Oh,
God, it's George Carlin.
Was it George Carlin?
Yeah.
My boy.
Yes.
Love George.
I'm blanking on the name you're asking me about right now, but he's the best.
He is the best.
He is the best. It'll come to me.
I thought it was that guy, Steve. Was it Stephen Wright? The guy who talked like.
It wasn't Stephen Wright, but Stephen Wright's classic, and George Carlin's also classic.
What was his name? It was
Who?
Bob or Dave or something.
It'll come.
Yeah.
Robert Schimmel.
Amazing.
Robert Schimmel was a fantastic guy. He was a stern guy. Had some HBO specials. If you've never heard of Robert Schimmel, he's fantastic. He's filthy, but he's very funny.
Yeah.
How did you come up with, why did those 3 stand out when we asked you the question?
I don't know. I just, as you get older, I mean, you guys can appreciate it, with kids and life is short. I mean, we're all starting to hear stories of, guys our age having heart attacks, and, it's life's short. You gotta enjoy it, and,
do you ever enjoy life before a baseball or hockey game in a parking lot?
I've been known to.
That's where there's definitely opportunity for fun.
You mean driving down there and just parking your car? You're like, whew, what a great spot.
Or
wonderful.
Or kids events.
If you drive by any local hockey rink, anywhere from, I'd say, 9 a.m. on, there will be a circle of dads drinking beer. Any given time.
Literally 100% certainty.
Oh, I love 100%. It. Awesome, man. Yeah, I agree with that. It's we're in our mid 40s, and people our age, they lose their parents, lose grandparents. Sometimes we lose one of our friends at this age.
Yeah. And
yeah, you're right, man. Life is short. We all work our asses off to make life as enjoyable as possible. But if that's all you got, you're not enjoying life. So I really, truly believe that having fun doing what you're doing matters. Understanding that time is finite, it's not going to be here forever. But again, like you said, laughing at yourself and the lines of good comedians like George Carlin. I mean, hey, if you can't laugh, you're not going through life the right way. So, really appreciate all your time today, Shaun. Thanks for giving us time out of your busy day. Before we shut it down, why don't you tell our listeners and our watchers where they can learn more about you and everything you got going on?
So we have a website that needs upgrading.
I looked at it. It was decent, man. Don't sell yourself short.
Just contact the website developer to fix your website, but don't use him to do your website.
That's going to change. I mean, we're on, Gavaghan Family Insurance. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and
nice.
That's
cool, man. We appreciate it. So that's all we have for this one, folks. Thank you for tuning in again to another episode of Bricks and Risk. See you soon. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Bricks and Risk. Our goal is that you walk away with 1 or 2 valuable nuggets, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us today. You can find all B&R episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast content. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.